Aloha and welcome to the Chronic Health Collective. This isn't just a community, it's your fresh start. We've gathered the best coaches and experts to help you reclaim your energy, heal from the inside out, and live with purpose. I'm Dawn Omalza, and today I am honored to introduce our guest today, Samantha Kaaua is a TEDx speaker, international best-selling author, and renowned marriage coach known for her counterculture approach to relationships. As the creator of the Inner Mosaic Method and the Marriage Mind Shift process, she helps individuals rebuild self trust and transform their marriages. Her international best selling book, Finding Beauty in Broken Pieces: The Art and Science of Transforming Any Relationship, has inspired audiences around the world to heal past hurts and create meaningful change in their relationships. So, welcome, Samantha.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here and have this conversation with you.
Yes, I'm so excited. And with the 4th of July coming up, and independence is a great big topic for us this week. And so, Samantha, so many people worry that being in a relationship means losing their freedom or
Mhm.
a sense of self, right? So, in your experience, what does healthy independence look like inside a partnership?
Yeah, I do see majority of the time when I'm working with couples that they truly lost their identities as an individual, and that's really one of the main problems, the main pain points in their marriage. Um, but I like to talk about instead of so one of the words that are used in my industry a lot is codependency.
Hmm.
And it it talks about how we are relying on the other person to feel better, to and really leaning on them so much so emotionally that their behaviors impact our feelings and therefore it impacts our lives. And although to some degree you would say you are codependent on one another as in a marriage, we like to call it, in a more healthy stable relationship, interdependency. And when you're interdependent, you're not reliant on the other person to be okay or do the right things or say the right things in order for you to feel good inside. Interdependence would look more along the lines of two independent people that come together and help one another to rise up. That they didn't lose their autonomy, they didn't lose their independence, they didn't lose who they are at their core, but they came together to be even better, right? As a team. And so, yeah, it's so common out there right now. I think it's just society and the way that we were brought up that has ingrained this codependent culture. And it's so subconscious that we don't even realize it, right? When we have like terminologies like, oh, my better half, or
Hmm.
they complete me, or right? Like those are terms that really set us up as a
Yeah, exactly.
society for losing who we are. So,
Hmm.
yeah, those are some of the things that I like to talk about when it comes to independence, and interdependence and codependency. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up about the terminology of codependence, and that can totally is relevant in the corporate world as well, right? It doesn't have to be personal relationships, but even relationships that people hold within the corporations. And one of
Yes.
the things that I would also add to that is that I try to let people know is like there's that expectation, right, that we have of others. And when
Mhm.
we're able to release that expectation and just focus on yourself, they can find so much more peace
Yes.
in finding a good middle ground or just, having a better relationship, whether it's work or personal. Awesome. All right. So, um, are there any conversations that you recommend to um, keep that positive, momentum going in that interdependency?
Conversations. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times when couples come together, it just depends, it varies, but oftentimes they mesh friends, they create new couple friendships, and then they create a whole new lifestyle that's revolved around the relationship itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a marriage and family therapist, when I was licensed and the way I was trained clinically, we would actually treat the relationship itself as a client. So there's one partner to the second partner, and there's the relationship, there's the marriage, and that is its own entity as well. So I think some of the questions and conversations that I would encourage couples to have is, I guess, the saying like, "What's yours, mine, and ours,"
Yeah.
right? And then having things to fill each of those buckets, right? What is something that I love to do by myself, for myself, and for like just that is me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you are in a codependent relationship, oftentimes you've lost that or forgot
Mm-hmm.
about that. And let's just like throw into the mix parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a parent, and even more so, you lost who you are and what that means, and your right, all that independence and
Yeah.
selfness, right? Or we want to call it self-care now, but that's what we would think. It would be so self
Mm-hmm.
because we're now parents and we're now married, so we have to give all of that up. That's not true. The more
Mm-hmm.
we give that up, the sooner we will likely feel lost and therefore resent not only our spouse but even our children.
Yeah, I think one of the common things when someone enters into a relationship, right, is that we sacrifice our girl time and spending time with our friends. And
Yep.
it's not like years later that we realize, like, oh, yeah, I've like
What
totally
happened?
disconnected with my, yeah, unless you're all going through like the baby phase together, right? Then you have that connection. But then, those girls' night outs just like totally disappear. So, how do you coach people through that and get them back to having that time again and being okay with even having that conversation, right? It's like because some people they're not as confident or they don't have that trust, and so they're like, oh, why do you want to spend time with other people? Why aren't you wanting to just spend time with me? Like, why do you have that need for connection with other people? So how would you handle that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot there, right? So,
Hmm.
first and foremost, the number one thing I work on with my clients is trusting themselves. So, you brought up trust.
Hmm.
And so, if they're in a season of life that they would love to only spend time with their spouse, they're in the honeymoon phase, they're absolutely in love, they forget about their friendships, and that's what they would love to do. I like to say, trust yourself. Like, there are many of us who get lost in a project or lost in a relationship. And the goal isn't to just never lose yourself. The goal is to follow your passion and then identify when it's no longer serving you or no longer what you would love.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. I think so many people beat themselves up saying, oh, I lost myself in my marriage and being a parent. And they start beating themselves up for all these years that they put other people first. They put their spouse first or their kids first. And I
Hmm.
like to tell them, I'm sure for a period of time, that is exactly what you wanted. That is exactly what you loved to do, to be, to have,
Hmm.
and to give. And so don't discount those years that you were enjoying that. You can,
Right.
okay, the last year or so, there was some comfort, there was some longing for giving myself more attention again. And
Hmm.
so for that last year, then you would say, okay, that's the time where the shift maybe could have happened a little sooner. So I
Right.
would say, like, follow your intuition, trust yourself in the season of life that you're in, and then ask yourself, like, what would I love? Would I love to reconnect with my friends that I lost touch with? Would I love
Hmm.
outside relationships other than just my spouse and my children, and
Hmm.
follow that. So that's like part one of answering your question. And then part two,
Hmm.
where you said, like, someone asks you, like, why can't you just spend time with me? Why do you have to find new friends? Well, I mean, that is a classic codependent question. To be honest, we are social creatures. So
Mhm.
our human nature is social, and we are dependent on other people in
Yeah.
our, like, other human beings to survive. So we are an interdependent species. We are
Mm-hmm.
not a species that can multiply and procreate on our own. Like, we need another.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet. We haven't figured that out yet. But the thing is, like, if somebody were to ask me, why can't you just hang out with me? Why can't you just be satisfied with our connection and our friendship?
Mm-hmm.
My answer to that would be, because you're not supposed to be my end all be all.
Right.
You're not supposed to be my everything. You're not supposed to be the person I have the most intellectual conversations, the most emotionally, like, deep conversations. You're not supposed to be the one that I only exercise with. You're not the only one I can have fun with. Like, we we are multifaceted people,
Mm-hmm.
and the beauty of it is finding other people that match different parts of our personality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's healthy.
Right.
It's scary to be someone's end all be all, only one and
Mm-hmm.
only. I know that in our fantasy books it says that that's supposed to be the case, but no,
Right.
that's
No.
not.
Right. We're constantly evolving as individuals, as so as our partners, right? Maybe for gentlemen, they're not as aware of that, but yeah, and it's having that space. I remember it was like maybe a year ago, and I had a night out with my girlfriends, and you because you haven't been with them for so long, the time just passes, and you don't even realize like what time it is. And I
Right.
just failed. I just failed to check in.
I've done that. I do that too.
Right, and it's totally innocent, and rather than you know getting into an argument, I just told my partner, I said, you can trust me to make the right decision, the best decisions for myself,
Yeah.
instead of like, oh, why are you picking on me, like, it's like I forgot, whatever, but it's like, yeah, I totally understand, I forgot to check in, he has his own concerns, and I just was like, I just gave him the validation, you can trust me, and that was
Mm,
that.
yes. Yeah. And we're human. We make
Yeah.
mistakes. And that it's not a pattern or
Right.
something like this. Yeah. Nice.
Cool. All right. So going on the codependency, let's see, what else can we talk about? Is there anything else you want to add to the interdependency or the codependency? Um,
Yeah. I think when we talk about independence, um, I think it scares people because um, it it's kind of the contrast of, I need people, but independence means I don't need anyone. And we're not talking about the all or nothing contrast of
right.
complete independence in a sense of, like, you're gonna, you know, go off grid and not see another person for years on end. We're talking about just really, I think really, if it comes down to it, the independence that I like to see my clients have is comes from this emotional independence, where and like mental, a lot of us talk about mindset and
Mm-hmm.
our mental health and all the things, but I think that's really truly what we're talking about when we talk about independence. And the interdependence is more physical, and yes, there's some emotional interdependence, but really when we want that autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay by ourselves to be able to self-regulate our emotions, to be able to have our own thoughts without needing someone's input or opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's where people get really scared, to be honest.
Yeah.
They are born and raised and conditioned to get feedback. and people's opinions really matter to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of a big point when it comes to independence and interdependence in relationships as well.
Awesome. I'm glad you brought up about like the conditioning, right? I mean, it's like what we grew up with in seeing the relationships of our families, our own parents. Um, so when we get back from the break, can we kind of deep dive into the influences and other limiting beliefs that gets ingrained in us, and how, what are some ways that we can break those down and remove that from our minds so that we can get on a better path to, healthier relationships. And I also want to deep dive next in the next segment too about extended families, right? Because there's a lot of extended families where, most marriages don't last so long anymore. People are so quick to divorce and then they
Mm-hmm.
extend their families, but that just comes with a whole host of other um, struggles, right? And challenges that to overcome. So after our break, we'll cover that. And then one last thing before we go to break, what got you into, doing this practice?
Yeah, in a nutshell, it's the story of my life. I was a product of divorced parents. I swore I would never ever get divorced and ended up marrying my high school sweetheart, and years later found myself right where I swore I wouldn't ever be, and found myself on the brink of divorce. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I it's my story, so it's my life's work.
All right. Thank you. I think it's a great segment, and I'm looking forward to getting into it more with you in the next segment. All right.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take control of your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
Have you ever felt stuck in your marriage, wondering if things will ever get better? Meet Samantha Kaaua, the marriage coach who's helping people transform their relationships in ways they never thought possible. Having saved her own marriage twice, Samantha knows the way forward. If you're ready to rebuild trust, reconnect, and create the love you deserve, visit www.thegems.com today, because the first step to transforming your marriage starts with you.
All right. Welcome back to our viewers. That was an awesome segment, Sam. Thank you so much. So we ended it, and I wanted to talk about, you just, shared your story where you were at the brink of divorce. And so let's talk about what was the turning point, how you turned it around, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. The turning point, I mean, I think it was just that. It was just the fact that I found myself on the brink of divorce. My husband, I had just found out that he had been hiding his addiction behind my back for 10 years, and I felt so betrayed and lied to, but also like an idiot. Like, like I felt like an idiot. I was getting right about to graduate with my math, or yeah, right about to graduate with my master's degree in marriage and family therapy. I was working as a substance abuse counselor. I was just like, how can I be so blind, right? So it just made me question everything, just who I was, what I
Mm-hmm.
knew, what I could see. I just lost all trust and faith in myself and the world around me, and it really was a breaking point. But in in retrospect, that breaking point was necessary for me to just shatter all the old and to build all the new. And the thing I swore to myself that kept me going in my marriage was maybe our marriage isn't meant to work out. Maybe we can never come back from this betrayal, but I'm going to get every single ounce out of this marriage that I possibly can before
Uh-huh.
I move on, because I knew, at least I knew this, because I had taken like 2.5 years of grad school in relationships. I knew
Mm-hmm.
that once I left this relationship, I'd still have myself to deal with. I still
Mm-hmm.
have to put back all these broken pieces and
Right.
find myself in order to even have another healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, I'm not leaving this marriage until I feel like a whole person. And in that endeavor, in that journey, we were able to save our marriage, and just by me doing my own inner work and
Mm-hmm.
becoming that whole person that I was desiring to be before I left, ended up allowing us to say, I think we do want to make this work, and we ended up staying together. So yeah, that's and then we had our second moment where we considered divorce was kind of like my husband's dark night of the soul. It was like his turn.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like a whole nother story in and of itself, but it allowed me to put all the principles that I have been teaching my clients for all these years um, into practice in like a forward sense. So when I first was on the brink of divorce, I didn't know what I was doing, but I managed to get through it and we stayed married. So I started teaching people, looking back in retrospect, and I, quantified, and what is the word I'm looking for? Like I systematized what I did so that I could
Mm-hmm.
teach. So, but it was all in retrospect. And then the second time I was able to say, oh, I get to like actually apply what I teach in real time now. Let's go. And within 6 months, my husband was able to turn things back around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, his depression and addiction was really kind of taking hold and winning over our marriage. And yeah, by following what I teach, my own formulas,
Mm-hmm.
within 6 months we were back together, and then within 9 months he was moved back in with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So that's great. I'm sorry. I have a follow. So I know that you had all the skill sets, to be able to coach someone through this, but being in your own situation, did you also seek additional help from the outside to help you through this, or did you do it all by yourself?
oh no, I could never say I've done it by myself. I did a lot of support,
Mm-hmm.
although I have to say, like, what the TED Talk that I have, it's titled "Why Marriage Therapy Fails" and why it doesn't. And it was interesting because the help that I thought I needed was the help that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean I did it on my own, but I had to
Right.
find my own way, um,
Mm-hmm.
and the right support, even though it wasn't labeled marriage counseling or marriage help, right? Because that didn't work for us. I
Mm-hmm.
found a life coach. I found other mentors.
Mm-hmm.
I really did a lot of digging within myself. I had a therapist at the time. I hired and fired a couple of therapists throughout that time, which takes patience too, because if they're not helping you, then they're not
Correct.
helping. So we got
Yeah.
to move on. And so I did
Right.
have to fire a therapist. He wasn't very happy about that. But But yeah, I did have a lot of help.
I think that's a great point. Let's talk about that because I came from divorced parents too, and then I found myself in a relationship that I was on the brink. Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay in this? Because at that point, I already had two children,
Yep.
or it's like, and I felt like you too. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to follow the same patterns that my own parents did,
We're
right?
supposed to break this.
Yeah, right. So it's like, yeah, how do I break that cycle? But for me personally, I ended up deciding to leave. But when I left, I had absolutely no regrets about my decisions because I did a lot of work on myself
Yeah.
first to make that validation. But I want to talk about the external influences and, having outside influence like therapists or other counselors and having to let them go because they don't resonate with you or they're not helping you. So I had the same experiences too. I'm like, oh no, this person is just making things worse.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So what would be some red flags that, people should be aware of, or how what it makes you feel to say, you know what, maybe I need just to find someone else.
Yeah, I mean, the best place to do it is when you're starting and when you're looking for a therapist. I say it's like dating, although I haven't been in the dating scene in a really long time. I use the metaphor of dating because not every therapist is meant to be a perfect fit for everyone. You
Mhm.
have to make sure your values align, that and that could be religion, it could be cultural, it could be
Mhm.
even just, feminism. Like, I don't know, sometimes that is a big deal.
Uh-huh.
And don't align with the beliefs and the values of your therapist, how will they ever guide you towards what it is that you want?
Mhm.
And so some therapists out there are strongly against divorce, and maybe staying together isn't the best option for you. And I never push marriage or divorce. I always say, you work on yourself, you will know when the relationship is complete, right?
Mhm.
You said you have no regrets and no hard feelings. We're just moving to the next chapter.
Mhm.
But if you find a therapist who has strong beliefs, whether that's religious beliefs or just personal cultural beliefs, then they can be steering you in the wrong direction for you, right? Yeah, it's identifying, I guess, the less concrete way, but more profound way to determine this is if you're sitting in therapy and for majority of the session you have a knot in your stomach or a lump in your throat,
Yeah.
it just means that you're afraid to say something or
Mhm.
you're afraid to share something, because it could be because of the therapist, it could be nothing to do with the therapist, but
Mhm.
what it means is that you don't feel safe.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it could not be the therapist. I mean, it may not be the therapist's fault, like they
Mhm.
didn't do anything wrong, but maybe they remind you of someone in your life, like a judgmental parent or
Mhm.
right,
Yeah.
someone who
Yeah.
has placed judgment upon you in the past, and now you're scared to say something. So if you sit in therapy, like 80, I mean, I will say like 10 to 20% should feel uncomfortable. Let's just be real. But
Yeah.
majority of the time, there's so much discomfort in that setting. They're not the right person for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I had one that actually released me.
I mean, that happens too, but I mean,
Yeah.
and I give them kudos, like I give them credit, because if they know they can't help you, they should release you.
Yeah,
That
absolutely. Great tips. Those are great tips. I love it. Okay. All right. So some people, right? Okay, so they're not able to get past or be able to, salvage the marriage and get into a better place that they can continue it on. And then, I've seen many people, even if they had decided to part separate ways, it's like years later, because again, they didn't do their own internal self work. They
yeah,
kind of reflect on that relationship and like, oh, if I was me this then, I could have salvaged it. We could have
Right.
worked it out, right? And it's like the problems and challenges they had back then really wasn't as challenging as they thought it would be, right? So, do you ever experience that with your clients too? That have
Yeah, I mean, I
that.
have clients that have gotten divorced and remarried. And like that happens probably more often than we know,
Uh-huh.
that couples, because they think that the solution is to get away from what they're proclaiming as the problem, which is their
Right.
partner. But the partner is never the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Our problems exist within ourselves. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you said earlier, our thinking, our limiting beliefs. That's really where the problem lies. So I think my declaration of becoming my like a whole person again before I left my marriage
Mm-hmm.
was kind of the secret sauce in making sure that we were, whether we were complete or not, right? Because
Yeah.
if you become a whole person again, like feeling whole again in your marriage, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, I'm ready for the next chapter. I feel like we've completed this relationship. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is a decision you will be able to sleep with at night. That is a decision that you know in your heart that it was right. And there will be no regrets, no looking back saying, oh, I should have tried a little harder. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I always recommend my clients do is pause, don't make any decisions right now, and
Mm-hmm.
find yourself again. And
Right.
once then you make that from that enlightened, connected, aligned place, then you make the decision if you want the divorce,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
That
Right.
just changes everything.
Yeah. And I think those are things too that when, the younger generation, as they enter into these types of relationships that could lead to marriage, are these are the kinds of conversations that they should have too, about honoring the fact that they will evolve over time, being open to sharing whatever is on their mind or what they're feeling, without the and just let the other person know, it's like, this is how I'm feeling, it has nothing to do with you, but can I trust you to be open about what's going on in my head and my heart, without you thinking, oh my gosh, this marriage or this relationship is doomed because she's having a bad day, right? So yeah, so let's talk about that too a little bit, but I also want to deep dive into extended families and your experience with that as well, because yeah, some people, they decide to divorce, and then now you have the extended families and the parenting part
Mhm.
of the relationship that is involved. And so you and I both have had experience of, obviously, with that
Yeah.
ourselves, right? And so yeah, what do you have to say about that?
As regards to like the extended families,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
think, go ahead.
oh, sorry, finish your question.
No, I was gonna say, if you could share it more from your experience and how it affected you, because I think a lot of people don't understand what it's like to be a child of divorced parents and how it really affects us.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yes. My parents were divorced, or they were separated before I was one. So I actually have no recollection of my parents being together, which is, I think, different than some children who had a young childhood with their parents together and then witness the actual separation. So they have a contrasting experience of what their parents were together and then what they were separated. But for me, even though I was really young and I didn't have awareness of them being together, I feel like, I mean, I don't know if I can speak for everyone, all the children, but I did question, like, was it me, or was there something wrong with me? Like after they had a kid, then they got divorced. Like what's that about? And so I think it starts kind of chipping away at like your self-worth, your self-confidence. Like I definitely had dad issues growing up because my dad was less around than my mom. And it just, and then enter in a blended family. I have a stepmom and a stepdad. So my parents both got remarried, and then I have half siblings. And then you feel this feeling of isolation of like, which family do I belong to? Do I belong to any family at all, because the one family because I'm the only child, right, with
Mm-hmm.
parents, so I'm kind of the floater, I guess you could say. And so yeah, I'm not surprised that I ended up being a teen mom. I got pregnant in high school. Well, when we had her after we graduated, but I was pregnant my senior year of high school. And I do think now that I look back on it, I was starving for a family, like
Mm-hmm.
a family that I could call mine. Yes, my mom was really good about making me feel loved and a part of her family,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, like there was a learning curve for my stepdad, because he kind of took second place to me because my mom always put me first. So there's
Mm-hmm.
all this multifaceted dynamics of being in a blended family and of coming
Yeah.
from divorced parents that, well, I think, like you said, a lot of people don't understand or know about.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you for sharing that. That was awesome. And we'll continue that part of the segment after this break.
Thanks.
Why do 98% of beauty enthusiasts rave about coolness? It's all in the blend of ancient wisdom and modern science. Introducing Coolness Pearlescent Face and Eye Serum Cream. This powerhouse combines the antioxidative power of schisandra berries, the glow of pearl powder, and the hydrating wonders of dragon's blood extract. It's like a time machine for your skin, making it radiant, firm, and oh so smooth. Inspired by ancient Chinese traditions and backed by modern nutritional science, this serum cream is perfect for dry, mature, and aging skin. Say goodbye to dullness and hello to youthful radiance. And guess what? For a limited time, you get a free cooling eye cream applicator with your purchase. It's time to unlock your inner glow with coolness. So what are you waiting for? Treat your skin to the best of both worlds today.
All right. And we are back. So we ended the second segment talking about your experience in a blended family. And I think I had a similar experience as well of the sense of where do I belong, because there's so many different dynamics, right, of families that you're belonging to, and then there's the half siblings. But I think what I realize now is how much society made me think that I was not belonging.
Yeah. Those,
And
you know,
so with
liminal messages, right? Yeah.
exactly. And so with my children, I mean, unfortunately, they had to grow up without their dad and have very limited time with them. But, I'm sure that every now and then they have that sense of longing as well. And, as young adults, I'm constantly trying to reprogram them on what the
Yeah.
society has taught them. So even with your own children, what tips do you offer them? Because even if you're working it through, they're still seeing the transformations happening, within the family. How do you explain that to them so that they're not affected by that, or they don't get influenced by, what society is saying?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with um, the transparency that I have with my children. I mean, they don't know everything, but the reality is children see everything. They
Right.
know majority of what's happening, what's being said
Mm-hmm.
behind closed doors. Like they know. And so instead of keeping them in the dark, I was very, especially through this second round of being on the brink of divorce, I was very conscientious of being super transparent with them. And my husband's decision to separate early on, or in that time frame. He, it was very I was very intentional every step of the way. So I had him talk to each of the kids and tell him that he was moving out and tell them why and what his decision was about. And I would have conversations with them too, explaining my understanding of what was happening, which had a lot to do with depression and addiction. And they were able to witness it firsthand instead of being in the dark and saying, like, what is really happening with mom and dad?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then really reinforcing that this has nothing to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
It has everything to do with, it's not even us, it's individually what
Mm-hmm.
dad was going through in that moment, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I think the antidote to a lot of this is transparency and not letting our children's imagination fill in the blanks,
Right.
right? Give them the actual narrative of what's really happening so that they can make sense of it themselves rather than
Mm-hmm.
mysteriously trying to figure out what's going on. And I think that's
Yeah.
key
Mm-hmm.
for my kids, at least.
Yeah, I think oftentimes we underestimate their ability to process and internalize all of this information. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. So sometimes even if we're going through these things and we do have children, the parenting sometimes as much as we want to not show them our stress or take it out on them, sometimes some things slip, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure your clients bring that up to you. So what kind of, advice or tools or recommendations you have for them to get through that and managing their emotions and their feelings?
Yeah. And I think every opportunity is an opportunity for growth. So the number one thing for them to do is not beat themselves up over their
Mhm.
mistakes and their missteps, because the more they beat themselves up, the more likely it's going to happen again. And
Mhm.
people don't realize that. They think, oh, if I'm hard on myself, then it'll never happen again because I'll make sure of it. It never happens again. But of course,
Mhm.
it's going to happen more often when we. So that's first and foremost. But I mean, and then, like you said, it's really this emotional regulation, emotional intelligence, and how I help my clients with their emotional intelligence. And awareness is through my inner mosaic method. And it's really about discovering the different parts of ourselves. There's so many, we're so multifaceted. There's so many different aspects of our personality, of who we are. And if we just lump it all together, likely we're going to forget about something, we're going to neglect something, or
Mhm.
repress something, and then it comes out sideways. And that's where we make a lot of mistakes, right? And
Mhm.
missteps. And then we end up having to apologize for yelling or screaming or not holding it together. And instead, we embrace all the different parts, acknowledge them, and then we're able to identify in those tough moments which part of ourselves is speaking up, which part of ourselves is having a meltdown. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, once we're able to do that, we can decide how it actually comes out, how we act after we have a feeling or a thought.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So in your coaching practice, that's a what your modality is and your specialty. I'm sure that's like a big need, and there's probably some people out there that would want to take their own experiences and build their own coaching practice, right? They want to help others overcome these types of challenges. Do you have any recommendations for them? Because I know you've had the formal training as a marriage counselor or therapist, right? And then
Mhm.
you built your coaching practice from your own experiences. Do you have any suggestions for people that would want to venture in becoming a marriage coach or relationship coach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I loved my clinical training. I loved becoming, like, having my master's degree in marriage and family therapy, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. I absolutely loved that training. However, there was a conscious decision to not be licensed anymore as a practitioner, as a therapist. A lot of it had to do with restrictions and that were holding me to the state I'm in, restrictions in regards to my practice in general and compensation even. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's something to consider. And then as far as like the coaching side of things, yeah, I really enjoyed getting certified as a transformational coach because it taught me a whole nother set of skill set, which
Mm-hmm.
is the business aspect that most people don't. Well, they did not teach us any business as in therapy school. I was like, that needs to be a course. Like, most therapists become entrepreneurs, and nobody taught us how to be a business owner.
Right.
So, but yeah, so that's what I recommend, finding a coaching certification or something that can teach you what it is that you're missing in your toolbox. So it
Mm-hmm.
maybe you have a business background and you just need more skills as a coach. Okay, then you go look for a certification that gives you that skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and vice versa. And I too have a certification, Inner Mosaic certification program that I take small cohorts of coaches through. I don't teach the business aspect of it. I definitely teach the model and the method of coaching and walking someone through
Mm-hmm.
their struggles. But again, it's really about finding what it is that you might feel lacking in your toolbox, in
Mm-hmm.
being either an entrepreneur or a practitioner. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, continuing on, how do you help couples encourage each other to take healthy risks in their own self development without straying too much away from their goals as a family?
Oh, that's a great question. I like the way that you pose that because so many couples, one of their greatest fears, they might not say it out loud, but I know it's a great fear for most couples, is growing apart.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and I like how you pose that question because it's like, how do you kind of continue on that growth path individually while still keeping in mind the common goals as a family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think it's developing your compass. I don't think I've ever described it in this way before, but it's coming to me now, and it's the way it's delivered. It's really sharpening and defining the compass that you have that's guiding you towards your destination. And if you have developed a very, what's the word I'm looking for, like modernized and high tech compass, you make sure that you're not deviating too far from your
Mm-hmm.
goal. What I mean by that, like, I know I'm speaking really metaphorically right now, but the reason why I am is because it's not just these simple one-off tools. It
Mm-hmm.
really, learning how to trust your inner guidance,
Mm-hmm.
your compass that says, you know, do all my moral values and my core values, my moral compass, my family goals get checked off by doing this activity
Mm-hmm.
or that action or following this dream, right? And sometimes it might seem like they're in opposition, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, if I follow this dream, I might not have as much time for my kids, or if I pursue um, this, you know, for me, I'm homeschooling one of my daughters next year. Like, if I homeschool
Mm-hmm.
my daughters, like, what does that mean for my career, or what does that mean for this? And so we live in a world where there's always sacrifice, right? We're sacrificing
Mm-hmm.
lesser for the greater. But if you think about it, and if you're always checking in with yourself, they will always move you in the direction, the right
Mm-hmm.
direction.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's, I don't know if that truly answers your question. But that's my answer, is like really
Yeah.
just defining that compass and trusting yourself. That is
Mhm.
my foundation. My foundational teaching is trust. So
Mhm. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. It's because what we forget to do is just continuing to do what makes us happy. Because if we continue to look at it as so it's like every time we make a decision and we're seeing that we have to sacrifice something, it brings us back to square one again, right? But maybe we have to reframe that and not look at it as a sacrifice. But yes, I totally get it. I think you should think like bring that into full fruition for your next book. That's a good one. All right, so I'm going to ask you our funky question, our infamous funky question. I promise it's not going to be that crazy.
not like Andy's one.
Right? Oh my gosh. So, okay. So, with the 4th of July coming up tomorrow, right? It's a holiday. So, if you could create a new relationship holiday, like Valentine's Day is a relationship
Oh,
holiday, right? What
yeah.
would you call it and how would you celebrate?
Oh, geez. Okay. This is such a good question, but so hard because I know I only have like 3 minutes, 2 minutes. What would I celebrate? I mean, I would want it to be kind of like a Valentine's Day for yourself. So it wouldn't be obviously be called that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, ah, like a self-love, self-trust. I know self-love is like overdone and like self-care is overdone, but I mean, in a nutshell, it really would be about loving yourself and trusting yourself and like take a day where you absolutely trust every decision you make and follow every desire. Like in obviously within your moral compass, but but
Yes.
yeah, that would be my holiday.
Right. Live it unapologetically just for that one day and see what
Yeah,
happens.
exactly.
I know that's a hard question. Like I was thinking about it, I couldn't even come up with one of my
I
own.
know. I was like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. And what would we call it? I don't know. YOLO, it's a YOLO day. Like you go.
All right. Let's see. What else am I supposed to cover here? We have time for another question? Yeah, we do. Yeah, I will put you on the spot. Okay. How about what song would be the theme if you had your own Independence Day parade?
Oh my gosh. You and Andy asked me a movie question the last time and I like blanked. What song would be independent? Um, oh, the song that comes to mind, like, okay, this is bad because I don't normally have titles, but fight song comes to my head. Um, I think that's the title of it. Like, this is your fight
Yeah,
song, or something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Um, who is it by? I don't even know who it's by, but yeah,
I know who
I
you're talking about. Yeah, that's a good one. And it's not negative in any way. It's like just keep going.
oh yeah, like I feel like I would want it to be like a empowerment, like you got this, like
Yeah,
keep going
yeah,
and trust yourself. Yes.
yeah. And
I might
music
have
is good, right?
no what?
Yeah. No, music is good. Like listening to music like that really helps like get you out of the rut and go do something or just get out of the funk that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can keep people in the rut depending on if they're listening, which type of music they're listening to.
Uh-huh.
But I do think I recall using music and quotes a lot in my darkest hour to help me like really realign with who I am.
Mhm. Mhm. All right. Thank you so much. So thank you again, Samantha, for sharing all your wisdom. I mean, I think we've like really really good stuff today about marriage, relationships, parenting, and all of that good stuff. But so please let our viewers know how they can contact you.
Yeah, I think the easiest way is to either email me at samantha@thegems.com. It's on the banner below us, or you can message me on Instagram or Facebook. And then you can also book a consultation on my website, thegems.com.
Awesome. And then I know you're based out of Hawaii, but do you also do events out in the States as well?
Yes, I work with everyone all over the world. I have clients in Australia and across the US and Canada. So yes, because I'm a coach and no longer a licensed therapist, I can work with anyone. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And Andy found the song, Fight Song by Rachel Platten.
Oh, yeah. That's the one. You should find it and do it as a closing, Andy. Okay, let's see. Let's wrap it up. I think so I think I'm gonna close it out then. Thank you again. I appreciate you. So if today's episode spoke to you, don't go at it alone. Book your free consult with one of our expert coaches at chronichealthcollective.com for personalized support. Subscribe to our monthly magazine for expert tips from all of our 14 coaches to elevate your health, mindset, and relationships. Catch us every Tuesday at 7 p.m. CST, or watch our past episodes anytime on E360 TV or youtube.com/ at Chronic Health Collective. Thank you for tuning in. Your transformation starts now, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.